So like a partner in crime.
Yeah, literally a partner in crime.
And what led you to prison?
We were sentenced to the possession and use of weapons and aggravated robbery with multiple counts. Welcome back to The Inner Voice. For those of you who are new to the channel, please refer back to our introduction video where I've given you a brief description of what you can expect on this podcast. I'll leave a link in the description down below. But on today's episode, I'll be joined with a very special guest who for her own privacy reasons would like to remain off camera. However, we're going to have a conversation and she's going to interview me and ask me a series of questions on our given topic today. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Khadija. I'm 28 years old and I'm from London. I've been married to Cameron for almost 9 years now. I've heard most of his stories before, probably more than once, but somehow he still manages to surprise me. It's been interesting watching him grow and learn from his past. I'll be honest, a lot of his examples I don't relate to, but the lessons behind them are quite valuable and I'd say it's a bit universal too. So let's get into the video. Hope you guys enjoy.
So what we're going to speak about today is one of the key moments in my life where I knew I had to change. It was one of the first times where I intentionally decided that I was going to make a few sacrifices and a few big changes, which ultimately shifted the direction of my future. So we're going to take it back to when I was 18 in prison at the start of my 4-year custodial sentence. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. If you've tuned in today, here's what you can expect from this episode. Number 1, an open and honest conversation where we'll share real examples. Number 2, the reasons why I felt the need to change. Number 3, we'll discuss all the conflicting emotions that I went through and how they made me feel at each moment. And finally, number 4, I'm going to provide you a few tips on how you can implement change in your own personal lives, regardless of how big or small. Let's get straight into it.
So can you take us back to a moment when things started to really shift for you?
Yeah, sure. The shift didn't start instantly, but the seed was sprouted, I'd say a couple of months into my actual prison sentence. So basically me and one of my codees, who was my childhood best friend as well, it wasn't long after we was transferred from HMP Forest Bank in Manchester to HMP Stokeheath in Shropshire. Like I said, I was 18 years old, coming up to 19. I was at the beginning of my adult life and I was messing up from the start. So I'd say that's where the seed was sprouted and that's when the shift began.
Okay. So what does CODE stand for the viewers who might not understand what that term means?
Yeah, sorry. Basically, CODE is a slang term for co-defendant, a person who's been charged for the same crime as you.
So like a partner in crime.
Yeah, literally a partner in crime.
And what led you to prison?
We were sentenced to the possession and use of weapons and aggravated robbery with multiple counts.
That sounds quite intense and chaotic. It must have been quite challenging for you at the time. But that's a whole topic in itself, and maybe we can speak about that on another episode.
Sure.
But for now, can you tell us more about the build-up and how you felt when you received your sentence?
Yeah, the build-up, you're taking it back down memory lane here. The build-up and when I received my sentence, okay, I remember being stood in the dock at Manchester Crown Court. And the judge ready to hand out our sentences. But before we entered the courtroom, I remember how the barristers got an opportunity to speak to us in private first, and mine basically told me that I was looking at anything between 6 to 8 years.
Wow.
And obviously, when I heard that, my heart legit sank because, bear in mind my age, first time offence, first time I've been caught for anything serious. Like I said, my heart sank. And you have to understand, during that age, I had a lot of pride and I had that male ego. And I didn't want anyone to know that. I wasn't willing to let people see that. And especially my peers, I didn't want them seeing my real emotions. I had to maintain that tough man image, you know. So after I got my bearings, when I heard he said like 60 years, I had to get my bearings and adjust myself. So I was quiet for a couple of seconds. And then I responded to him and I asked him, like, what? I'm looking at 60 years for my first offence. And this is when he explained to me the difference between robbing someone with violence and just stealing or getting into a fight. Also, because I was 18 years old, I'd be tried as an adult and not a juvenile, not someone who's under 18. And back on the streets, obviously, we didn't pay attention to the legal terminologies of this stuff. We was never exposed to it, and we weren't really interested like that. We were just little young thugs. But these were all new lessons for me, which clearly I was learning the hard way. But going back to the courtroom, when we entered the courtroom itself, I remember how we had to get sectioned off. There was this reinforced glass that separated us from the rest of the room. Like, our family and friends, you could see them with like tears and red faces to the right side of the room. And like on the left side, I remember like the police officers, the detective that was investigating our case, who was scowling at me. Like, that's a story in itself, the way, she did not like me, I remember. And there was other officials, our barristers, and right ahead of us was the judge on his elevated platform. And I'm not gonna lie, like, it was such an uncomfortable feeling. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. There was a whirlwind of emotions, and it was just very conflicting and very uncomfortable. But even up until that point, after we got arrested, being on remand for some time, then on tag curfew for 8 months before we got sentenced, obviously, on this day, I wasn't ready to change. I wasn't thinking about the harm I'd caused or how much I was destroying my own life. At this point, it was just go with the flow type of vibe. I wasn't ready to change, man.
So you didn't have intentions to change.
100%, I had no intentions to change. And like, after we committed our offense, this is nearly a year later. So I've still not had my reality check. I'm still not ready to change.
So at what point did you realize that you didn't want to stay the same and you did want to change?
It was probably like 4 months into my actual sentence. Like I said, we was on tag curfew for 8 months, then a few months into jail, which made it, yeah, like I said, about over a year until I started thinking about other people other than myself.
Would you say during that period you was quite selfish?
100% selfish. You see, up until that actual point, life kind of taught me to protect myself. Like, off camera, like, the things I've been through from childhood. So I've kind of learned to be in this survival mode and protect myself. You see, when you grow up without emotional stability, no one to comfort you, no one to teach you how to regulate your emotions or even how to just communicate on a basic level, you kind of bottle things up inside. And, without even realizing it, you tend to keep shit to yourself and you try to deal with it on your own. And as a kid with no experience or maturity, you don't realize how dangerous that can be and what effects it'll have on your life later on down the line. So it's not like I intentionally wanted to or I enjoyed being selfish. No, of course not. I was simply molded by unfortunate circumstances, which naturally made me like that.
Yeah. So why the change in heart?
Why the change in heart? Well, first of all, prison offered me something which I've never had before: a safe space with time. Might sound weird that I'm calling it a safe space, right?
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say that before.
Look, basically, when you're banged up in your own cell and the other inmates are in their cells and no one can get out and no one's got access to yours, and that door's not opening until the screws come and open it. Sometimes it's the next day. When you're banged up in a place like that, it feels like no one's getting to you. So you do end up feeling a little bit safe, which sounds unusual, but it depends on your perspective. See, at that point, there weren't many distractions, apart from a few TV channels like Big Bang, like E4 and the standard 1 to 5 and a few others. you end up getting bored at some point, which in my case I did. There was no mobile phone. I wasn't in a Cat D facility, and we didn't have any run-ins or anything like that at this point. So I had no mobile phone to unplug me from reality. So basically, when you're consistently alone with no distractions for long periods of time, you have no choice but to think and reflect. Just to sidetrack for a minute, it's easy to think and reflect when you've got a test coming up or something that you're looking forward to. You understand? Because you revise, you think about it, you look at the things that you can improve, etc. Driving tests, for
Yeah.
example. It's easy to think and reflect in them moments. But when it comes to things that you've done harm, like when you've hurt someone's feelings or you've let someone down, in them moments, it's not easy because it's uncomfortable. So most of us avoid them topics, right? So for me, in that moment, in that time, in that chapter of my life, I had no distractions to unplug me from my own reality.
Mm.
You understand? So I started, thinking and reflecting. And I'm not going to lie, like the first few months of doing that was all selfish thoughts. Like, I miss home. I miss eating what I want. I miss being able to do this. I miss that. And all other thoughts that basically helped me feel sorry for myself.
So comforting yourself in a way and not actually looking at your actual
The
reality.
bigger picture, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about other people. I was thinking about myself. It's
Yeah.
being selfish again. But eventually, I had a reality check. Um, it started subtle, to be fair, but it gradually increased. And for once, literally once in my life, I thought about someone else other than myself without someone else telling me to think about someone else. This was me intentionally or on my own accord thinking, genuinely thinking about someone else.
And who was that person?
My mom.
How would you say that made you feel?
I can't just exactly say one or two different emotions because there was multiple emotions. And I'll share an example, like I'll share a story. Basically, I remember one of the first times when my family came to visit me when I was obviously locked up, and I was waiting for them to clear security. So just to put it into perspective, like when you got a visit in prison, like at that time, you kind of like prep the day before, or a couple of days before, like the excitement you feel before your family members or your friends are coming. You kind of like you're excited on the wing, right? Like at that time, we weren't allowed to wear our own clothes. I wasn't on basic. I was I don't think I'd got to enhanced yet, but I was a standard prisoner because there's different like levels of prisoners. The basic, standard, and enhanced. And depending on your status, you get different privileges. So at that point, we weren't like the prison hadn't introduced or allowed us to wear our own clothes yet. Only the Cat D lads that were going out on workouts were allowed. Obviously, if you're confused, I can explain that after. Anyway, basically, so the prison clothes that I had, the ones that fit you the best, like my grey jumper, my dark blue jeans, like the ones that fitted me the best, like I wasn't taking it to the laundry and switching it because we switched clothes. Does that make sense? Like every week you
Yeah.
take your old clothes, you give them and they give you a new fresh set.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm.
But the ones that fit you the best, you kind of hold on to. So my ones that like fitted me the best. I wanted to look presentable as best as I could, even though I looked like a little scruff because I'm in this ugly jumper and ugly pants. You still try to make an effort. So I remember a few days before, like prepping it all and making sure it's fresh and stretching it out and putting heat on it to make it look like, because I didn't have an iron, so I had to try and stretch it out, the marks, the creases and that. I prepped it and I was excited. And I was ready before obviously my family members got there. So I arrived at the visiting room before my family members came in. So when I was sat there, just imagine like I'm sat in this one-seater chair. There's a table in between, and then there's three chairs there in front where my family members would come and sit. So I'm sat at that. I'm sat here, yeah, and I'm watching other prisoners, family members and friends, girlfriends, and that coming in. And as the door's opening, where the security is, there's a glass panel on the door, but still, when they open the door, you get a better view, right? So from a distance, I'm looking up ahead to the left,
Yeah.
and I could see people coming in, and I could see the sniffer dog going sniffing around them and that, and the security patting them and stuff like that. And knowing that I put my mom in such a position, like she's going to be getting searched and dogs sniffing near her and that for drugs and contraband and whatever else.
And she's a conservative Muslim woman as
I
well.
was gonna come to that. So yeah, basically, it's like it made me feel the all kinds of emotions. Like first, I was angry, but what can I do? I can't go up there and start banging the screws out. I can't go and start restraining people. I can't do shit.
It's not the same as
It's
the
not the same. I'm
streets.
not on the streets anymore.
Yeah.
So I know mentally, I know I'm locked up. It's not about physically locked up because at this point, I'm not sat in cuffs. The police ain't got me in cuffs.
Yeah.
No one's got me tied up. I'm not banged up behind my door. At this point, I can physically get up. I can go over there and do something. But I know what the repercussions are going to be. I'm not going to be allowed on visits again. I'm going to get thrown into like solitary or something. You understand?
Yeah.
I'm going to get stripped of my privileges. I'll get extra days and that. So I know
Yeah.
mentally I can't do shit. So at first the anger was there initially, and then when I realized I couldn't do anything, and then I started feeling shame and embarrassment, then I realized that the anger was more towards myself. I was angry that I put my mom in that situation. I put my family in that situation. They're going to be getting searched and that because of me. So then I felt embarrassed. Then I felt ashamed. And like you just mentioned a minute ago, my mom is a conservative Muslim woman. She's quiet. Like for the viewers that don't know, she's a quiet lady, and she wouldn't really appreciate that stuff. She's not going to like that stuff. So knowing I put my mom in that position, it made me feel ashamed and it made me feel embarrassed. And just to cut it short here, I remember like towards the end of the visit, like the way she held me, and it's like all she could say and share was her concerns about me and what I was going to eat and looking after myself. Like all she cared about was my well-being.
Yeah.
She wasn't talking about how it's made her feel and everything else.
Or saying, you did this, you made this happen.
No guilt treatment, nothing. Like all she was concerned about was what I'm gonna eat and like to take care of myself and that. And
if you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, literally, man, it broke my heart. I'm not gonna lie, man, it hurt.
Would you say these emotions were just in the moment, or did you carry it with you back to your cell?
Yeah, I definitely carried it back with me that day. It wasn't one of them where you just thought about it briefly and then 10 seconds later or half an hour later it's gone. Nah, that night I thought about how I made her feel, not just in that moment, but over the course of however many years that I'd been causing her pain and the tears that streamed down her face because of me. I thought about as much as I could, like maybe not every single episode, but I thought about all the times I let her down and I disrespected her. And to be honest, without even realizing it, that was a turning point for me. And obviously from there, the story goes on. Like the seed of empathy, for those of you who do not know what empathy is, it's different to sympathy. Empathy is when you actually visualize yourself in someone else's shoes. Instead of like just feeling sorry for them, you visualize yourself in their shoes. So for me, in that moment, the seed of empathy, I'm not saying I became an empathetic person, no. I'm saying the seed of empathy was sprouted in my conscience. Does that make sense? So obviously from there, I started thinking about other people. So to sum up the reason why I had a change of heart, going back to your original question, it's because I had a moment to reflect on my behavior and my actions. I held myself accountable for the decisions that I was making in my life, whether they was good or bad. And I realized one important thing, that the world did not revolve around me. That other people, even those that I care about and the people that I love, they're also affected by my decisions. So obviously, if I continue to be selfish and making decisions based on how I thought or what I wanted to do, then people that I love would also continue to get hurt. And I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want that for them, and I didn't want that for me.
And how did that guilt and reflection become part of your healing rather than something painful to carry along with you?
Well, there's a couple of points that I could get into, but I don't want to get into all the little nitty gritty, so I'll just try to summarize it. My first thing that I did was I made a conscious decision to reach out to the people, well, as much as I could reach out, to contact the people that I hurt, people that are disappointed, people that you know, like whether it was in my personal life or external people, I wanted to make amends or at least apologize. So, you know, where I could make phone calls, where I could write letters, I did restorative justice, which we'll get into in a minute. Just to quickly sum up, it's basically when the victim of an attack meets the offender. So I did restorative justice voluntarily, in fact. You see, I know I couldn't exactly take things back, but I just wanted people to know that I was sorry at least.
At least get them to get some sort of closure.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
just a closure or a little bit of understanding at least. So I wanted people to know I was sorry, and bear in mind, like, I didn't know I was changing at this point. Like, you know, it takes one step at a time, and at that time, all I was thinking about is just saying sorry, just getting that off my chest, just holding myself accountable. Just, you know, like, even if the people want to give me shit, you know, even if they want to disrespect me, lecture me, whatever it is, or even hit me, I was willing to take it because I was holding myself accountable. So I wanted people to know that I was sorry. That's all I wanted to do. But that was the first step which got the ball rolling. Hence the reason why I was able to make big changes later.
That must have been a big step for you in itself. When you say ball rolling, what do you mean? Is this where you started to look into religion? Because from what I know, I think it's safe to say that you wasn't really a practicing person, were you?
No, not really. Like, you know yourself, like, my family, my parents, like, I've grown up in a fairly practicing Muslim household. My parents both pray. I've got 7 elder siblings. They're fairly practicing too. But I was far from it.
Yeah.
Like, it's obvious. You could see it from my pictures from when I was younger. But like I said, that's a story in itself, and we can save that for another episode because that will be a full episode in itself. But I'll share one story with you. Now, we have to take it back to when I was first arrested, right?
Yeah.
Before I got sentenced, before tag. The night that we got arrested, this was the second night in a row where we'd been out committing our shenanigans. When we got arrested, it was a Friday or a Saturday. I forgot. But it was weekend and the courts weren't open. So we had to wait till Monday for the courts to be open to decide what's happening with us, right?
Yeah.
When we went to the magistrate's court in the local area, they ruled it out straight away and they referred it to the Crown Court because it was too serious. So then we was in the cells again for another night. And then the Tuesday came, we was in the Crown Court, remanded straight away.
What is that?
Remand is basically when you start your sentence before you've been sentenced.
Yeah.
So because it's so serious, it's so obvious, you're going to get a sentence, you're going to get penalized, yeah?
Yes.
You start serving your time before you've been sentenced to how much time you're going to serve.
So is it that thing, like you said, when it gets deducted?
Yeah, so like I said to you off camera, if I get sentenced to 4 years, but I've served 20 days only on remand,
Yeah.
that 20 days is going to be... It's going to count towards my actual sentencing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah? So that's on remand. When you're on tag, like when we got onto tag, just to sidetrack for a minute, when we got onto tag, because you're in the community but still serving some form of punishment, they're classed as half days in jail. So because I served 8 months on tag, that classed as 4 months inside.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now go back to my story. Basically, when we got arrested and we got put on remand, you know, first day or two, you have to adjust to the regime, the setting, the vibe, you know, like how the guys are and the rest of it. I think the third night or something, like when we got banged up, screws have locked the door. I'm padded up with one of my codees. One of the other codees is opposite, and another pad with some next guy. And the other codee, because there was 4 of us, he was in a juvenile because he was under 18. This guy that I'm padded up with, he was my childhood best mate, but he never used to like be into talking that much. He wasn't a talker, but I was a little bit. I might not express full-on emotions to him or other guys, but certain things you chat to, like, you know, the guy type of talks.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, you know, oh shit, man, why did you do this? Oh fuck, I miss this, man. I miss home. Oh, I wish I ate this. I wish we had this now. Little things like that.
Because you didn't have anyone else to talk to.
You don't have no one else to talk to, you know,
Yeah.
and I can't ring anyone. I can't go visit anyone. You don't have anyone around to talk to, so you kind of like rely on each other. So techia, like out of no choice. I was trying to chat to him.
But
He's
he's
not
not.
that type. He wasn't that type. He was
Yeah.
just, just listening, but kind of just watching the TV type of thing. The second night, right, when the screws have locked the door, my man's pretended to go sleep within the first 30 minutes. He couldn't be asked listening to me again. Fair enough, I understand. So what happened is I was on the bottom bunk and I was just zoned out looking up. My eyes weren't even in the room. Like I was in a daze in my brain. And you know when you kind of zone out and
Yeah.
you ask yourself loads of questions like, why did you do this? Or why did that happen? And then you find out answers yourself. Like we all do it.
We talk to
We
ourselves
talk
like,
to
oh, shall I
ourselves.
try this dress on? Oh, no, that might look a bit.
Things like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But when you do it in detail in a moment like this where when something bad's happened, you might not be holding yourself accountable immediately, not straight away, but you're trying to figure out why did this happen. You know, the domino effect, you kind of retract your steps.
Because you no, it's the fact that I think you got caught and you think, why did you do this, man? Like,
Yes,
but then you
that.
was giving answers like naturally.
Yeah, so it's like there was two parts in my head. This
Yeah.
is when I first started, like I started figuring myself out a little bit in my brain. I was understanding myself. Like there's an emotional part, which we all have,
Yeah.
and there's also a logical or rational part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm asking myself these questions like, why'd you do this? Or why'd you do that? And then I'm thinking, because you hurt this guy. Why'd you hurt that guy? Because you was angry with this person. Why was you angry with this person? Because I smoked weed and my temper was short, like loads of things. Eventually, when the questions ran out and I'd been satisfied with the answers, because I couldn't lie to myself.
No, you
You
can't.
can't lie to yourself. You already know the answers. So when I exhausted all questions and was satisfied with the answers, something happened. I don't know if it was divine. I don't know if it was, meant to be in that moment. It's possible, or like it was just me out of desperation, or perhaps it was all of them. I kind of just spoke to God for the first time in my life. Like I said, I wasn't a practicing person. I didn't used to make dua. When I used to pray, I used to pretend to pray, or in the mosque even, I'd poke people in the bum and I'd tickle their feet and run off and do other messed
Mess
up things.
around. You
Mess
didn't
around
take
like a
it
kid. I didn't take
seriously.
it serious. Exactly. I didn't take it serious. I was messing around as a kid. But I'd never, on my own accord, especially out of desperation, I'd never spoken to God. And in this moment, I did. And I basically made a deal with him. And that's between me and him, the little details. But I said to him that I was willing to sacrifice something, right? I was willing to sacrifice something that was clearly affecting my life and clearly causing damage to everyone, not just myself, but everyone around me. And I was willing to sacrifice that if he allowed me to go home. Like, if he just allowed me to go home and just, spend a little bit of time before I get sentenced and, give
Say goodbye.
say goodbye, give my family that opportunity to say bye at least in a normal way. That's all I wanted. And I made that deal with him. And, next day, what happens? The cell door opened in the morning. Odin, pack your stuff, you're going home. And my co-D had to stay behind another few more days.
Wow.
But I got that. And I didn't even realize in that moment, listen to this, I didn't even realize that in that moment that God responded to my call from last night. I didn't think about it. It's brushed past my head. It took time for that to come back into my brain. And that's scary in itself. Like we said, that the story with religion, my journey towards God and religion, that's a topic in itself, because even that, in that moment, I did not realize that came from God. But yeah, and then another thing that got me practicing, just to sum it up, was whilst I was in prison, I read a book about hell and the punishments, because, I might have escaped the law multiple occasions. I might have, feds never caught me for a lot of things that I did. They had no evidence, or just a lot of things
Yeah.
I got away from, even my parents and that. As a kid, you get away from so much from other people,
Yeah, you get away with it. Yeah.
but I knew I couldn't get away from God. So obviously this is going into my prison sentence now, and when I'm in jail and, I had gone through my accountability and the rest of it and became empathetic, I realized I couldn't escape God. And I knew that there's punishments, not just in the afterlife or hell, but in this life as well. So when I read that book about hell and the punishments and some of the things that I could, relate to, like the actions
That you're guilty for.
that I was guilty for, oh me, I shit myself. Like that kind of like got me a bit, they got me wanting to practice, basically. I hope that sums up your question.
So, when a lot of people read into religion, they usually see the positive side of things, the positive side of religion. Can you tell me why you went towards more the punishment side and hell rather than seeing like the good in the religion first?
Okay, so look, looking into the bad before I answer your question specifically how you've asked it, I was kind of just exposed to the dark side. When I'm a kid and you just hear the negative, you always hear, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that. Oh, you'll go hell for that. Oh, don't do that. Oh, it's gonna make God angry." Like, I grew up in a household where they didn't express God's love or
Okay.
his merciful side. It was always fear, fear, fear. And then obviously the treatment of how my dad or my elder brother was, or the community that was supposed to be Muslim and Asian lads, the way they treated me just because I used to hang around white people. Like, I seen the bad side of Muslims. At one point when I was a teenager, I started to believe what the media said about terrorists and shit, because my personal experience wasn't, I was felt like I was getting terrorized and bullied and stuff. So I seen the dark side of, it's not even Islam. Like, look, now as an adult, I could say it's not Islam. I seen the dark side of Muslims, some Muslims. Does that make sense?
Mm,
Like, just because someone says they're a Muslim doesn't mean they fully represent the religion.
okay.
Islam is a separate thing to the person.
Yeah.
Me as a practicing Muslim, there's a multiple mistakes that I make, which a non-Muslim person will think, oh, all Muslims are like that. But really and truly, I'm giving the wrong image. Does that make
I
sense?
get that. Yeah.
So I was exposed to the wrong type of vibe, if you want to say. Always exposed to the dark side of stuff. So in this particular case, going back to your question, the reason why I got interested in the dark side of life, the religion, sorry, is because it was the timing it happened. I'm in prison. I'm taking accountability for stuff. I'm starting to become empathetic towards other people.
Mm,
You know, I start having these reality checks. I'm starting to fear things to do with the afterlife. So it made me do it out of my own interest. It wasn't because someone's throwing it down my throat. No teacher at the mosque, not my parents, not my peers because they go to the mosque or they're studying this Islamic course. No one's throwing it down my neck. This was of my own interest. I went towards something that I was interested in. Whatever religion it is, whatever type of person or background you come from, we all have different interests in different subjects. So when it comes to cars, you might be interested in, Audis, but I might be interested in BMWs. We have different
yeah.
tastes,
Yeah.
but it's still a car. It
Yeah.
still has the same sort of engine and stuff.
I get
So it's
that.
the same with religion. It's a very complex and a world of information. So what you might find interesting, it might not be as interesting to me, vice versa. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So going back to your question, it's because I was interested in it and I wanted to know where I personally can relate to the religion.
And like you said before, you wanted to see the sort of punishments you'd receive because you got away with quite a lot of things.
There you go. Yeah.
With
Like I just said, I wanted to see what I can personally relate to in the religion.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was the punishment and the things that I knew I couldn't escape.
Yeah. It's really powerful hearing how your journey went from pain to purpose. Thank you for being so honest and for sharing your story with us. Before we wrap it up, what would you say to someone who may be in a similar situation that you were in? Someone who may be in the process of change?
Okay, so these are going to be the tips that we're sharing with the audience today. So, number one, I'm going to say the most important thing is to know what you want. And good starting point would be to know what you don't want. It doesn't have to be on the extreme levels of going to prison and stuff. It could be everyday activities or everyday life. You might be a smoker, but you understand and you don't want to be a smoker. It affects your stamina. You can't play with your kids as much. You get tired when you go to the gym or you go jogging or for a walk or even getting off the sofa, and you don't want that. Or you might be overweight and you don't want to keep struggling to get out of bed, or people making you feel insecure with their comments. Or you might be skinny and you want to get a bit more healthy looking. It might be that you don't have a driving license, you don't have a car, and you want to drive. A good starting point is to know what you don't want. But when you know what you don't want, question yourself what you do want. Does that make sense? That's the first step, right? The second step, it relates to it. You have to accept where you are now. Now, this is important. A lot of people struggle to accept their reality. They give in to the thing that they don't want, and they have this victim mentality, and they start feeling sorry for themselves. Now, that's the important step. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Instead, accept that this is your reality. Accept where you are now. Because when you accept that, you're actually willing to do something about it. If you sit there feeling sorry for yourself instead and crying about it, moping around, you're going to start procrastinating. You're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to take the necessary steps to improve, right? So accept where you are and realize that nothing happens overnight. It takes time. And the bigger you want something, the bigger the change, the more time it could potentially take, or the more effort it's going to take. And finally, number 3 is to take one step at a time. You have to realize that things don't happen overnight. It does take time, and the bigger the changes, the harder and the longer it might take. I'm a living example of it. I've been selfish. I've been a drug addict. I've been, like violent. I've disappointment to everyone around me, you know? But I'm telling you something, it gets you nowhere. You'll be in the same place you was next year that you was your last year. It's not going to change your life. But you have to understand, it all starts with that first decision to make a change. Change does not come to you, it comes from you. Understand that. Your outside circumstances, the things in your life, the things that you see, it's not going to change. Your environment's not going to change. The people in your life aren't going to change until you reprogram and change what's within here. So I hope for now them words have been helpful. What's more important is the application of them words. You can find them useful to hear, but if you don't apply it, it's not going to make a difference to your life. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up, share this video, all that good stuff. Just show us a little bit of support and love. We'd really appreciate it and help us grow this new channel. And a massive thank you to our guest who has been my interview today. Thank you. I'm sure she'll be joining us again. And until next time, guys, peace out.